In this video, we are going to go over the first formative in Unit 2B on graphing quadratics. So question number 1 gave us an equation in vertex form. And in vertex form, the vertex is given to us on the inside and the outside. So this plus 3 actually means the x of my vertex is negative 3 because the inside will always be opposite and the outside will always be the same. So my vertex is negative 3, negative 1. And I'm going to go ahead and take that and put it in the middle of my table. Then I know that the axis of symmetry is always the same as the x of my vertex, so this will be x equals negative 3. Now, part B, I could circle up or down after I graph, but I can see that my a value right here is 1, meaning that my a value is positive, so that means my graph is going to open up. All right, so now based on my vertex, I'm going to build a table of values. So I'm going to put negative 4, negative 5, negative 2, negative 1. And I'm going to plug these numbers into this equation and solve for the y values. So I'm going to do that down here. So I'd have negative 5 plus 3 squared minus 1 would be negative 2 squared minus 1, which would be 3. Negative 4 plus 3 squared minus 1 would be negative 1 squared minus 1, which would be 0. Negative 2 plus 3 squared minus 1 would be negative 1 squared minus 1, which would be 0. And then negative 1 plus 3 squared minus 1 would be negative 2, or positive 2, sorry, sort of a positive 1, squared minus 1, which would be 3. So now I can plot those points. So first I'm going to plot the vertex at negative 3, negative 1, and I'm going to draw in my axis of symmetry at negative 3. I'm going to plot my other points. So negative 5, negative 3, negative 4, 0. Oh, sorry, it's negative 5, 3, negative 4, 0, excuse me. Negative 2, 0, and negative 1, 3. And this will give me my parabola. Now they want to know what our x-intercepts are. So my x-intercepts come from where my graph hits the x-axis, so here and here. So I can see my x-intercepts are at negative 4, 0, and negative 2, 0. Now they want us to write it in intercept form. So my intercept form is x minus p, x minus q, where p would be negative 4 and q would be negative 2. So remember, it's always opposite. So if this is minus p and p is negative, it's going to be plus 4. And since this is minus q and q is negative, it's going to be plus 2. And so that's what my intercept form would look like, and I get that from my x-intercepts in the line above. All right, in question number 2, now they're giving us an equation in, this is in standard form. And when I have an equation in standard form, what I know is that my y-intercept is always my c value. So my y-intercept is negative 7. But that doesn't help me make my table. I need to get my vertex in order to make my table. So does the graph open up or down? I can see that my a value is negative. A is going to equal negative 1, so I know my graph is going to open down. While we're talking about a, I know that b is 8, because we talked about c is negative 7. I need to know a and b, because I'm going to use opposite b over 2a to find my axis of symmetry. And my axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals 4. And we know that axis of symmetry is always the same as the x of my vertex. Now I'm going to take 4 and I'm going to plug it back into the original equation. Notice how I plug it in with parentheses and how this negative is outside the parentheses because it's negative parentheses x squared, so 4 squared. And this is going to give me 9. And then I'm going to take this vertex, I'm going to put it right here in the middle of my table, 4, 9. And then I'm going to build a table around this. And then I'm going to plug in each of the numbers into the equation. I can just type those in my calculator. And I would get 5. Do the same thing with 3. And I would get 8. Do the same thing with 5. And I'm going to get 8. Do the same thing with 6. and I would get 5. All right, now to plot my vertex, 4, 9. Draw on my axis of symmetry at 4, and then plot my other points. So 2, 5, 3, 8, 5, 8, and 6, 5. The third question on our quiz was in intercept form. And so it tells us the x-intercepts, and again, when we have something in parentheses, it's always the opposite. So my x-intercepts are going to be at -5 and -1. And I'm going to plot those right away because those are going to help me find the axis of symmetry. So -5, -1. And my axis of symmetry is always halfway, or the midpoint, between my x-intercepts. So if I find the halfway point, my x-intercepts are 4 units apart, so halfway would be 2. And so my axis of symmetry is going to be 2 away from each point, which is actually at 1, 2, x equals -3. Mathematically, you could have also done -5 plus -1 and divided it by 2. That's how you find the midpoint, and I would get -3 for that. So remember, the axis of symmetry is always the same as the x of the vertex. Now I can take that x of the vertex and plug it back into the original equation, and you're going to get -4. And again, we'll put that in the middle of the table. And then we're going to build a table around that number. So -4, -5, -2, -1. Now I'm going to plug in each of those values back into that original equation. So -5 plus 5, -5 plus 1 is going to give me 0. -4 plus 5, -4 plus 1 is going to give me -3. -2 plus 5, -2 plus 1 is going to give me also -3. And then -1 plus 5, -1 plus 1 is going to give me 0. So let's plot these points. So -5, 0 is already plotted, but I can plot -4, -3, and -2, -3, and -1, 0 is already plotted because those are our x-intercepts. All right, the last question was using the graph, we're going to fill in some key information. So the first question asks, what is the vertex? So the vertex is my starting point, so it's right here. So that's going to be 1, -9. The next question says it wants us to write it in vertex form. And now vertex form looks like this, where my x is h and my y is k. And they say assume your a value is 1 or -1. Well, since my graph is opening up, I know my a value is +1, so I can write 1, or I don't have to write anything. So x minus h means x minus 1 squared minus 9 is what my vertex form equation would look like. Now, my domain is your x values, and we're going to think left to right. So if I look at my left arrow, this is going left to -infinity, and this is going right to +infinity. And then if I think about domain, my domain is bottom to top. So my bottom is here, the y value is -9, the top is infinity. So my range would be -9 to infinity. Now it's saying to circle where the graph is increasing. So it's increasing on this right side, and it says squiggle where the graph is decreasing, and it's decreasing on this side. G says to evaluate f of 3. F of 3 means that x equals 3. So I'm going to go to where x equals 3, and I'm going to go to where I hit my graph, and the output is -5. On H, it asks us for the x-intercepts. So I see them here at -2 and at 4. So I'd write -2, 0, and 4, 0. And now it wants us to put this in intercept form. So again, I'm going to have x minus p, x minus q. In this case, P is -2 and Q is +4. So minus a negative means +2 and -4. Now the last question says put it in standard form. And to get it into standard form, we're going to multiply out this factored form. So we can either do that by FOIL or by box. So I'm going to show it both ways. So if I FOIL, x times x is x squared, x times -4 is -4x, 2 times x is 2x, 2 times -4 is -8. So I get y equals x squared minus 2x, after I combine these like terms, minus 8. The other option is you could do box method, and so I would put x plus 2, x minus 4, and you would get the same thing just in a box. And then if you combine the like terms in the middle, you would get the same thing we got over here.